All right, guys, how's the sound now? Is it good? Is it nearly as good as it used to be back in the day, last week or the other day? Let's see. All right. Excellent. All right. Well, guys, I'd like to thank you for tuning in. And sorry for the late start. This is the first time I've been streaming on my own, and it's new territory for me. So I appreciate your understanding. Who am I, and what am I doing here? My name is Joe Tillman, and this is the Joe Tillman Show. Normally, it's occupied by myself and my co-host for Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth. That would be Spencer Kobren, but he's not here today, and I decided to stick with it. The show must go on to help you guys. This is what I do. I come in when others don't. Anyway, so I've also got a phone number here set up. I'm going to see if I can get that set up real quick. I'm going to see if I can pull it up real quick. I don't know if this is going to work, but if one of you guys want to help me test this out, this is all last minute, then we can give this a shot. The number is, it's a California phone number, by the way, that I'm using for this. It's area code 949-328-1336. That's 949-328-1336. Give me a call and let's see if this bad boy works. Been spending the past 3 hours trying to get this together. Nico, thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. Nico, you should be the one to call because you're so good at calling in. So, guys, in case you don't know, there's a lot going on in the hair loss world. Oh, here we go. Here's a phone call. Cannot hear you. Let's see here. Who's this? Where are you calling from? Well, my setup isn't working for the passer of the phone. I'm stealing your show. Yeah, I don't know if they can hear you. They probably can't hear you, actually. I got Spencer on the phone. Let's see. I'll hold it up here, actually. Yeah. Spencer, this is certainly not as easy as it looks.
I want to congratulate you on the Ball Truth takeover.
Thank you very much.
You're killing it.
Yeah.
I know you just started. And tell Jay Jones, give him my love.
Jay Jones, Spencer sends his love.
Apparently he thinks I gloat.
I saw that.
People are so mean.
They are mean.
Anyway, dude, good luck. I wanted to help you test your phone. I got shit to do. Guys, enjoy the show. You got Joe all to yourself.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Have a good one.
Later.
All right, bye. Spencer Kobren, everyone. Yeah, so I was hoping to get this number set up. Sorry, guys, it's not working quite the way I was hoping. But anyway, it's okay. We got the chat room, and I know that we got FSK. He just got back from Turkey, and if I recall, he went to Azmed in Istanbul, Dr. Koray Erdogan. I'm sure it was a fantastic procedure. I'm sure you got a great story to tell. I'd love for you to tell it. Maybe if you can use Skype to call that number. I'll put it down in the chat room here, and at the very least, I can hold the the phone next to the microphone so we can all hear the story. Let's see, 328-1336. That is a North American calling code, which I believe would be, I think it's 011 from anywhere outside of North America. That's also from, also works if you're calling Canada. But so who am I and what am I doing here? Again, my name is Joe Tillman, and I am sometimes known as the original hair transplant mentor, which refers to my website, which is hairtransplantmentor.com. And I have been in this industry known as hair loss and hair restoration since 2002, unofficially 2002, but officially since 2003. I got 2 hair transplants in the early 1990s, and it was a really bad decision because I was not informed about what my alternatives were, what my options were. And of course, the internet really wasn't in existence as we know it today back then, so I didn't have the opportunity to research. I was unfortunately talked into it by the doctor I was speaking with, and fast forward, lost all my hair. Guys, it sucks, but it sucks even worse if you got a big mess of pluggy graft sticking up in your hairline and nothing else behind it or in between it or in front of it. It sucked. And I got a great repair job by Dr. Jerry Wong of Hassan Wong back in early 2002, and that pretty much set my path forward to helping you guys figure out what the hell you should do about your hair loss or what you shouldn't do. So let's see here. I got some things going on. There's a lot of activity. My job now is to talk to you on the microphone and at the camera and to pay attention to the chat room and maybe any phone calls that might come through. Not quite sure why this part's not working. But this is going to be interesting. And if we can make this work on any level, I'll be really happy. So let's see. Are there any questions? Let's see. See, how many grafts did he get? Let's see. Nico, who are you talking about? How many grafts did who get? See, Tyler, Joe, what do you think about finasteride and increasing estrogen? See, do you feel this? All right. Tyler, yeah. So Tyler in the room has a question. What do you think about finasteride and it increasing estrogen? You know, I'm not a big expert on this part of the hair loss realm, but what I do know is that, you know, when you're taking finasteride, the way it works is it gets between the enzyme 5-alpha reductase type 2 and testosterone and prevents the testosterone from being converted to DHT by that enzyme. And in some cases, there will be an increase in estrogen levels, which is why some guys are talking about gynecomastia, otherwise known as man boobs or moobs for short. And you know, some guys will take an estrogen inhibitor to kind of counteract that. Does it happen to all of the people that take finasteride? I don't believe so. But again, this isn't my focused area of expertise. I'm more on the surgical side of things, and I can say that in my case, I've had my blood work done, and there was no increase in estrogen. Everything was actually just swimmingly beautiful across the board. So that's the best answer I can give you right now. David Anderson, thank you, my friend. Jay Jones, what do you think of female hair transplant hairlines? Seems like it's difficult to make it look natural because female hairlines are typically pretty soft looking. Great question. Female hairlines are among the most difficult things to do in hair transplant surgery. In fact, hairlines across the board are the most difficult aspects of any hair transplant surgery, or I should say, doesn't matter if you're male or female. If you're having a hairline done, that is the most difficult part of any hair transplant to be performed. The problem with female hairlines is that you have a different shape than you would with a male hairline, and there is a softness to it that needs to be incorporated, but those are, you know, that's what you need to have with any hairline, whether it's male or female. And so you'll have some clinics talk about using nape hair. You'll have some clinics talking about, you know, taking the grafts that they get and cherry picking, I hate that word, cherry picking the single individual hairs that look finer than the other single individual hairs. One of the doctors I works with talks about doing that. That's Dr. Edward Ball at the Maitland Clinic in England. It's a challenge. I think that if you have a doctor that's really good at making male hairlines, then they're advanced enough to where they most likely have a pretty good idea of how to make female hairlines. The basics are the same. You got to have the single hair grafts that, in my opinion, need to be dissected with stereoscopic dissecting microscopes, and then it's basically the shape and the design that is really what differs the female from the male hairline. There's a lot more about that, but that's the gist of it. So I hope that answers your question for you. Let's see what else we got. Okay. Ian in the chat room says, you mentioned on the last episode that you'd put together, last episode of what? This is the inaugural broadcast of the Joe Tillman Show. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm just kidding, of course. So you mentioned last episode that you'd put together a formula for FIN beginners who are easing into the process out of concern of side effects. Can you elaborate on what that regimen is? Glad to. Great question. Over the years, I've had a lot of people approach me saying that they're really worried about the side effects, or they have had side effects from Finasteride, and it's really caused them problems, but they really want to figure out a way to take it. So the regimen that I came up with is pretty straightforward. If you have, say, 1 milligram tablet of Propecia or Finasteride, start with that. If you have a 5 milligram tablet, it's really hard to cut that into fifths so that you got 1 milligram pieces. I usually, like in my own case, I just quarter it into 1.25 roughly size pieces. But with that out of the way, the regimen is the same. So for 1 month when you're starting out with this, and I'm not a doctor, but for 1 month when you're starting out on this, you take roughly 1 milligram or 1.25, whichever you got with you, 1 day a week. And you take that on a Monday. And then if you're fine with that, if you're not having any side effects, which, very, very high probability you won't, then the second month, you go Monday and Thursday. So you're twice a week. So you at the beginning of the week, Monday, and then middle of the week on Thursday, and try that for a month. And if that works out fine, then the third month, you move it up to 3 days a week, and that would be Monday, Wednesday, Friday. If that third month is fine and you have no side effects, or if you have side effects and you kind of push through them to try and see if they subside, which does happen for a lot of guys, the side effects will subside after about, say, 3 or 4 weeks. But if you push through, then you can start experimenting with every day or Monday through Friday. You could do Monday through Sunday, 7 days a week. That's up to you. If at any of these stages you do have any sort of side effects and you don't want to continue at that level, then you can back off to the previous month's intake frequency, which would be, say, if you're at three times a week and you're starting to see side effects, you can back off to twice a week, Monday and Thursday. That's basically how that works out. And every person that I've spoken to that has had side effects in the past, I've been dealing with one guy for 1.5 years now, and they get off the medication, give it maybe a month for it to completely exit their system, then start up with this different regimen. Works every time. I've probably shared this with maybe, I'd say 40, 50 people over the years, and maybe more. And I've not had a single one come back and say that the side effects affected them, even if the side effects did affect them earlier. So it's a great way, I think, in my opinion, non-professional opinion, to ease into it. And it gives you more control, and it gives you more awareness of what it is exactly that's going on. So try that and see how it works out for you. And I hope that answered your question. Thanks for asking. Let's see here. Al Nasser 113, Joe with Daily Propecia. I know that you don't get major sides. Do you feel any less sexual desire or less harder erections? My wife wishes it were so. That's all I can say. Christos Conan, hey buddy. Hello Joe, please let us know what should be the real expectations for a crown hair transplant. We can't find a before and after result without topic or paint. Yeah, it's a bitch, isn't it? It's hard to say. I mean, I've had roughly, I can't remember off the top of my head how many grafts I've had in my crown specifically. If I recall, it's maybe 1,800, maybe 2,000-ish. I was very bald in my crown, and I have really, how can I put this, strong but light coverage. It's complete coverage, like every area of it's covered evenly, but the density isn't high enough to where you don't see the bald spot or the thinning spot. Now it's a thinning spot. It used to be a big bald spot. No one would look at me as being a bald guy they look at me as being a thinning guy. And you can look at my pictures. Go to hairtransplantmentor.com and then the menu item hair transplants, and you'll see my story all the way through. And you've got more pictures of my crown than probably any other patient in the world. So you can check those out, and you'll get an idea of what I'm talking about. My hair is fine. It's medium brown, so it's kind of a medium contrast against my scalp color, which is pasty white. Some guys will have much better coverage. Some guys will have less coverage. So that's the best I can tell you on that. Let's see here. Going down here, a lot of questions, a lot of activity. Thanks, and guys, thanks again for tuning in, and thanks for putting up with the delay. Let's see. Thanks, Warren. I appreciate that. David Anderson, thanks, buddy. Just trying to figure out what's going on here. Let's see. Okay, Al Nasser, again, one of your videos about concealers. Nanogen was there, but you didn't try it on. What do you think of comparing to Topic and Go Fiber and Kabuki? I didn't try the Nanogen because honestly, that day, this is the first outdoor drone usage concealer review. This is the one I did about a year and a half ago. It was such a pain in the ass to do that. To do that in one day, which is the only way you can do it, it takes hours because it's going in, out, hopping in the truck, driving out to an area where I can fly my quadcopter and shoot, then driving all the way back, then coming back up, washing my hair, drying my hair, putting it back in. By the time I got to the Nanogen, I thought, I don't have patience for this. This is a major pain in the ass, and it can't be really any different than the ones I was trying at the time. And I actually tried looking for it for this latest comparison. I can't find my Nanogen, so I might do another one. I wouldn't mind trying Kabuki because it caught my eye a couple years ago when it first came out, or a few years ago. I might try another one, but it's a lot of work to do these, and they're really difficult. So don't look for it anytime soon. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out. Thanks, Nico. Appreciate that. Kay in the room, in the chat room, says, how do you cut your tablet into quarters or into threes? I don't cut it into threes. I cut it into fourths. That's what quarters are. If you cut it into threes, then you're getting more than, you're getting, was it 1.75? Is that right? About, give or take? A little bit more than what most people want to take. 1.25, give or take. I say give or take because it's impossible to cut it exactly. You're always going to have a little bit of flake off. Some pieces are going to be a little bit more than 1.25. Some will be a little bit less. That's the way that works. So, David, yes, you expect thorough from me. Thank you very much. Well, I do my best. Let's see what else we got here. Trying to see. Yep, you're welcome, guys, for the answers. What we got? FSK, you got 5,020 grafts. That's awesome. How many were you supposed to get? What was the original estimate? Did Dr. Erdogan estimate 5,000-ish? I expect he did. Let me go back here. Just looking for more questions. Guys, I can't take phone calls, but you're more than welcome to ask questions. Let's see what I got here. Okay, nope. Nothing there. Okay, just to put this. Okay, guys, I gotta have some questions here. You know the routine. If I don't get any questions, then I'm hanging up because I got stuff to do. Okay, look at all my resources. Okay, Pit W. Joe, I'm out 10 weeks for my 2,000 graft FUT with Dr. Charles. All hairline and corners strip healed great. You got small pimples forming. What's next? That's a great question. First off, I always want people to defer back to their post-op instructions that they get from the clinic. because they may tell you something that's different. But in general, when you get small pimples that are forming, 10 weeks, so 2.5 months, this is the beginning of your growth. And the pimples are just some of the hairs trying to create new pathways out of the scalp. Because if you think about it, these follicles that are in our scalp, they have pathways for the follicle to exit. And when we're transplanting a new follicle to a different part of the scalp, then that pathway isn't quite so clear, and they have to make their own pathway. And so a lot of those hairs will get trapped, and they'll create a pimple because they're trying to fight their way out. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's normal. You can even, in my cases and in my experience, you can squeeze them and clean them out with a little bit of antibiotic ointment just to make sure that it doesn't get infected. But after that, you're looking at continued pimples coming in off and on for the first several months, signs of even more growth coming, but that's a good sign. You got new hairs coming in. You've got the beginning of your journey, actually. 2.5 months is fairly early, so congratulations. That's good stuff. Warren, I'm glad that the Heriton's working great for you. Good for you. Jay Jones. Tyler, Joe, what do you think of Dr. Charles? I'm considering him. Florida is hard to find ethical surgeons, mad scam artists over here. Don't I know it, my friend? Yeah, I know I don't know Dr. Charles well. I've met him several times. I've always liked him as far as our interaction. Seems like one of the good guys. His work is solid. He's got a lot of happy patients, and he's an IAHRS accepted member, which, as we always say on the show, is a great place to start. But every doctor has their own style, and I talk about how there's no such thing as a best doctor. I've not talked about it much, but my position is that there's no such thing as a best doctor for everyone. There is no single best doctor. There's only the best doctor for you. And in Dr. Charles's case, he's the best doctor for a lot of people because he has a lot of happy patients. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see. Warren War, RoboCop. I gotta admit, I'm sometimes tempted to get the crown filled, but I gotta come back to my senses. Yes, you do. Don't. You win, buddy. We talked about that. Okay, FSK just had his surgery yesterday or 2 days ago with Asmed. Joe, my hairline work is great, but it looks higher than when I had the lines drawn on. Is that because of the swelling? Nope, it's because he placed it a lot higher than he told you he would. I'm kidding. Yes, it's because of the swelling. It'll get worse. See, today's Thursday. You had it Tuesday, so it might get a little bit worse as far as the swelling goes. But by this time next week, it'll be completely turned around, and everything will be constricted back to where it needs to be, and it'll look a lot better. It'll be back in the place that you thought it should be. So rest easy. Okay, Tuesday and Wednesday. You know what I'm talking about. You get my point. Let's see. How long are you off from work, by the way? From your duties. Let's see. Looking for more questions. More questions. Let's see. Okay, good, Warren. Stay where you are. Okay, Christos. I have retrograde alopecia or dupa. That's not the same thing. And started minoxidil, nizoral, omega-3, and polyvitamins. I have a lot of regrowth at the front, and the thin hairs at the crown just could grow more, but my donor is weak. How to make my donor hairs stronger? That is the $1 million question. I'm a big believer in your nutritional intake. In other words, what are you eating? And I think that situations like this that may or may not be related, but it's great to cover your bases just to make sure you've done everything possible that you can do besides medication, and that is just to eat right. Avoid sugar as much as possible. It's poison, or processed sugars are poison. Too much sugar of any kind is just not that great for you. I'm a big believer in organic meats that are, if you eat red meat, I'm a big believer in grass-fed, no antibiotics, no hormones. It's got to be all natural. Any sort of poultry, chicken, same thing. It has to be free range, not eating chicken feed. It needs to eat bugs, as one of my online friends say. I source that. That's the only kind of meat I eat. I'm fortunate that there are some great shops not far from me. Once a week or once every 2 weeks, usually I take a trip, buy enough to fill my freezer, and it's not really any more expensive than going to a regular grocery store. Green vegetables, lots of green vegetables are great for you. Again, try to avoid the pesticides and anything that any fertilizers that aren't so good. Just all natural, and that might be the cause of some sort of issue you might be dealing with. And let's see, just looking there. And then of course there's Finasteride, because if you are having thinning of the donor area, I mean, there is a chance that could be DHT induced. And of course Finasteride can help with that, but there's also the issue of whether or not you should even have a surgery. I've seen cases like yours where patients have had surgery and it did work out, but I've not seen them for the long term. I'm always very cautious about that, and I think that depending on the degree of thinning, and I don't know if you've said in the chat room if it's actually diagnosed as being retrograde alopecia and DUPA. Those are two different things, by the way. So please clarify in the chat room if it's one or the other. But I think that first you need to really reconsider the option of getting a hair transplant if it's extreme. I mean, if it's something that's noticeable from a few feet away, or if it's something that only has to be diagnosed in detail up close by a professional, those are also two different things. If it looks like it's mild, it might not actually be the case. But if it's obvious, then it might be something to make you reconsider surgery altogether. But again, to make it stronger, Finasteride, maybe oral minoxidil. We're talking about that a little bit more, and just a stronger diet, and that's basically the best you can do. I can say, before I move to the next question, that the diet situation, when I went paleo, which means the caveman diet, is what it's called, all organic meats and just green vegetables, and no breads, no sugars, nothing like that, no processed foods, my hair quality overall skyrocketed. My donor hair seemed to be much stronger. My hair transplant seemed to be much stronger. And I'm not as strict as I used to be, but I still maintain those basics. And that's one of the reasons why that's one thing I attribute my hair to today. And a lot of guys are always complimenting on my hair. Hey, it looks great, shiny, all that healthy stuff. It's great. I kind of think that has something to do with it. So, see, hold on a second. Okay. FSK, diet after your surgery. Don't eat processed foods. Don't drink sodas. Just eat clean. If you think that you're going to be eating healthy food that you're getting from a deli, like, cheeses and hams and all this stuff, all that is super loaded with sodium, and that's just not a good thing. If you're going to eat meats and vegetables, get them from your grocer, and make sure that on the packaging it says no hormones, antibiotics, stuff like that, or organic. I don't know what the organic qualification is in the UK, but just do your research and you should be fine. generally just eat good stuff. That's all I can say. Let's see. Yeah, so Pit W thinks, as you said, it's now the hardest time after surgery, the waiting game. It looks still unbelievable at this stage that all the grafts that were placed are actually coming out. Well, as my original consulting mentor told me many years ago when I was getting my hair transplants, my repair hair transplants, the worst part about hair transplant surgery isn't the surgery, it's the waiting for the result. Surgery's over with in, a day. Nowadays it's 2 days. But the worst part of the surgery is the next 8 months or 9 months waiting for everything to come in. So strap in, buddy. You're in for a ride. In fact, you're about to hit the emotional roller coaster that I talk about on my website sometimes and on the forums back in the day. You'll be excited to see new hairs pop through, and then 2 weeks later you're going to be depressed because you don't see anything else happening. So it'll be up and down, buddies. Hang tight. Let's see. Yeah, Manu El Dorado. Yeah. Let's see if I can do that. My problem is I can't hear myself right now, and I don't know why. Because I thought I had it set up right. Hold on. How's that? I'm running a check. Check 1, 2. Check. What do you think, Manu? Is that better? Yeah, I think that's better. Yeah. Okay. Thanks, guys. All right. Let's see. More questions. Rishith Reddy. Joe, what do you think about saw palmetto? I don't. Saw palmetto is a DHT inhibitor, and it can reduce your DHT, but you got to take a lot of it, but it can also give you side effects. In fact, there is a member of the chat room right now that has had personal experience with that. And yeah, I mean, it's no different than Finasteride as far as that goes. Yeah, it's not worth it. I mean, if you're going to take something, just take. I would suggest taking Finasteride instead. It's easier. Please suggest which vitamins to include in daily life. I'm not big on vitamins. If you're eating right, you don't need vitamins. Pure and simple. Eat your meats, eat your green vegetables, lots of water, and that should do it. Let's see. Mordecai. Hey, Mordecai. How's it going, Morty? Joe C. had a good result with the PRP. You're planning to do it again. I am not. The only reason why I had PRP, and for those of you that don't know, I had platelet-rich plasma therapy with Dr. Jerry Cooley when I was at his office. Was it 3 years ago? I think it was 3 years ago. Yeah. Doing my review of his clinic, and he happens to be one of the more, I'll say, reputable PRP practitioners out there, because he's one of the first ones to really bring this into the hair restoration world. And it was like, hey, why not? Let's try it. I'd always wanted to know more about it. We started talking about it. And so since I was there, I was like, well, what do you think? Would that do anything for me? And he said, well, it won't do much because everything on my head is transplanted. But we talked about the fringe of the native hair versus the transplanted hair. So the fringe is in my part line on my left side, and then the fringe of my crown. And the goal was to see if PRP would make that fringe closer in, or if it would make that make the crown shrink a little bit, and if it would fill in my part line or raise the part line further into the transplanted realm. And it did. And that was great. So, I do recommend PRP as a, not as a replacement for any sort of medical therapy, but if you can't take finasteride, if you can't, if you're not going to be taking the actual medical therapies or the ingestibles, I should say, the orals, then PRP is great. It works great in tandem with topical and oral formulations. And it can also help with recovery from surgeries, or at least what I'm told. I'm not aware of that personally. There's like a lot of great stuff about it, but you also got to find someone that can show you definitively that they know what they're doing. And this is, PRP is like one of the more common, what can I say, honey traps of getting people in the door, because everyone's talking about it. This all started with a vampire facelift that plastic surgeons were talking about. They were doing PRP and injecting it into your face to eliminate wrinkles. Well, that's crossed over into the hair world where everyone's offering PRP. I was in downtown Vancouver. Actually, was it downtown? Yeah. I wasn't far from the office I used to work at, and there was a Botox place that was talking about PRP. In fact, I was at a party of a friend's house a few months ago, and I was introduced to a dentist, and he was talking about starting to offer PRP hair therapy. And he knew nothing about it. All he knew was all he needs to do is buy a machine and inject the platelets into the scalp, and that's what he was told is all he needs to do. When in fact there are so many different kits out there. You got to have the right kit, the right centrifuge, which has the right concentration of platelets, and the right additives like A-cell, which is not legal. It's not legal. It's not been cleared by Health Canada, which is the Canadian version of the FDA, and it's in most cases it's a waste of money. So if you're going to consider PRP, you got to go to a place where they can show you actual results from their PRP alone, and not from not in tandem with surgery or anything else. So I hope that answers your question. Let's see. Just going through. Let's see what else we got. Okay, Nico. Hey, buddy. Question is anxiety a potential common enough side effect from Finasteride that it's reported? I hear a lot of people mention it. Well, I mean, you just answered your own question. If people are mentioning it, then yeah. I mean, some people do have that as a side effect. I never experienced it. I mean, I've had times in my life when I've been anxious for various reasons, but I do not attribute that to Finasteride. I do know of people that have had to quit because of that being a side effect, but it's also one of those rare side effects, at least in my experience. Let's see. PRP is a new fashion now. Every cosmetic hospital offers it. That's exactly right, Al Nasser. And Al Nasser, how can we know if PRP is legit? You gotta use your judgment, buddy. You gotta ask them, can you show me specific examples of PRP therapy and its efficacy, how it's worked in your patients? And if they can't, then I'm not saying that they're being dishonest, but if they can't show you that it works in their hands, then don't waste your money. Most places are going to charge you a couple grand for this, and if it's really cheap, or if it's included as part of a really cheap hair transplant surgery, like is the case in Turkey. I know a lot of places for 1,500 euros, it's all you can eat buffet, all the grafts you can get, 5-star accommodations, luxury limo service to and from the airport, and PRP included. It's not legit. I'm positive of that. Let's see what else we got. Sorry. Yeah. So, Morny. So if it did work, why not do it again? If the doctor is a good doc, I was considering it, but I was only considering it with a doctor I recommend, like Dr. Cooley. Okay. So the reason why I'm not going to do it again is because I don't plan on being at Dr. Cooley's office anytime soon. If I do go to his office again, or if I go to the office of anyone else I would trust with their PRP formulation, then sure, I might do it again. But it's not something I feel I need. I mean, look, I'm happy with my hair, and the only thing that I do to enhance my hair today is I'll use Hairton hair fibers. Like I did, was it last weekend? I went to a wedding, and I thought, why not? I'll use the Hairton through some of the crown along the part line, and it was great. but I have no need for PRP. If I have access to it, then sure, I'm happy to do it. It gives my hair a boost. Why not? But it's not something. I'm not that position anymore where I need to find more solutions for improving my hair. If I need to improve my hair long term, I'll just get another hair transplant. So, let's see what else we got. A lot of messages flying. Thanks, guys. Again, I really appreciate you sharing coming into the chat room and watching the show. By the way, this is the inaugural, the Joe Tillman Show, and will it happen again? I don't know. The only reason I'm here today is because my usual cohort, Spencer Kobren, decided to go fishing today, and no, but he's got a lot of work to do. There's the big ISHRS World Conference is in Los Angeles starting next week, and so he's got some stuff going on there. And we were supposed to take the day off, but I wanted to go on to answer your questions and to help you guys out. So I actually invested in my own equipment and tried to put it together today. There's so much that goes into this to do it right. I could have done, just a Skype call in and have my speakers transmitting into the microphone. It would have been horrible. I wanted to do this the right way, and unfortunately it didn't turn out. So we're halfway there, but so I appreciate that, guys. Thank you so much. So while we're in the chat room, we got 37 people watching right now, and I got 6 likes. I want to see those likes climb to 20. So at least give me a little more than a 50% like ratio on this. So hit that like button, boys. Let's see. Nico, I appreciate that. Thanks. Morty, thank you so much. Rob, you the man. Let's see. Warren, as I stated before, are you guys seeing a lot more guys getting bad S&P like I have lately? Lots of blue and green heads getting in. Yeah. S&P is, I've not been paying too much attention to it lately. I used to be more involved on that side of the industry. But it's hard to find a good, consistent practitioner. It really, really is. So if any of you out there are looking at or considering S&P of any kind, trichopigmentation, S&P, you really need to do your research. Find a clinic that does not only great work, but they got to do it consistently. Just like with hair restoration, guys, you can't find someone that's got 1 or 2 home runs. It's got to be a home run almost all the time. So let's see what we got here. Rishith, Joe, what's your opinion on Viviscal hair supplement? I know nothing about it. Let me look it up real quick. Viviscal. Okay, we can get it on Amazon. Doesn't tell me anything. Drug-free hair supplement. It still doesn't tell me anything. Pardon me. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not going to bore you guys while I look up what's in Viviscal, but I'll give you the answer I give anyone that's asking about a new product or a product that's not really out there in mass. And if you guys, any of you, Rishith or any of you, if you see a product that's talking about how great it is, if you don't see it on the cover of Time magazine, if you don't see it on the cover of the New York Times or any of the large, legitimate mass media outlets, then it's not any better than anything that's already out there today. Most likely, I'm not talking about Viviscal specifically because I don't know, but most of these products that are out there that are talking about, drug-free or, all natural, things like that, they usually have saw palmetto in them. They might have, even the quote-unquote drug-free products might have minoxidil. But it's got zinc, it might have iron, it might have saw palmetto, and other, ingredients you can get at the drugstore. There are so many things out there that have really the same thing as the next guy. it's a waste of money. Not saying that about Viviscal specifically. I have no idea what's in it. I'm just talking about hair remedies in general. Most of them, it's pick or choose. They might work. I don't know, to some degree. Who knows? But it's usually a waste of money. Let's see here. Any merit to the idea that shampoo conditioner, this is by Ian in the chat room, any merit to the idea that shampoo conditioner causes an overproduction of sebum, resulting in more hair loss? Well, I don't think an overproduction of sebum results in hair loss, but shampoos can trigger an increase in sebum production simply because they're stripping the sebum off of your scalp. That's why products like, oh gosh, what's the name of some of the products? Starts with an N, not Nanogen. Neutrogena and those kinds of products, they can be really harsh on the scalp. I mean, they're great for cleaning the scalp, but they can strip your scalp, and that's why they say only use it maybe a couple times a week. And when you start stripping your scalp from all the oils and which is the sebum, then your body starts kicking in an excess production. Not all the time, but sometimes you'll have an increased production of sebum because it's trying to compensate. And that's what the human body does. It's like if you take something away that the body normally produces, then it might try to counteract that by increasing the production to replace what's been lost. It's a very generic answer, but that's the basics of it. That's the gist of it. Let's see. And Rishith again in the chat room. Joe, which shampoo do you use? I try to use Paishao, which is a Canadian brand. You can get it on Amazon. You can go to their website, paishao.com. It's spelled Paishau. It's all natural. It's tea based. They use tea leaves to make the shampoo, among other things. But it is paraffin free, gluten free, of course, and all the normal harsh chemicals that you find in shampoos are not in this shampoo. It smells awesome. It's got a very the smell is very reminiscent of like a Moroccan oil of some sort. It's great stuff. It's pricey. I used to get it from my hairstylist, Linda, who's in one of my hair transplant education videos. I used to get it from her, but she was telling me that it's more difficult to get. The manufacturer was shutting down. They're not shutting down. That's the latest information. But she's not carrying it anymore, so I'm going to start ordering it directly from them or on Amazon. So I do recommend it, and I do have an affiliate link at some place where I can sell it through Amazon, but it's a hassle. So buy it anywhere you want. I don't care. Let's see. I'll answer one last question. If I will start 5 milligrams of Lonatan orally, can I quit topical Rogaine 5%? Will I lose any hair, or should I take both? You know I'm not a doctor, but I gotta say it again. I'm not a doctor. I would topical Rogaine 5% versus 5% oral Lonatan. I would not just quit the topical cold turkey. I would overlap maybe for a couple of weeks. I would start. Okay, here's what I would, if it were me, this is what I would do. If I were taking 5 milligram topical minoxidil and I wanted to introduce 5 milligram oral minoxidil, Lonatan, I would start the oral on a Monday, not take my topical on that day, and I would take only the topical on Tuesday and not the oral, and then I basically kind of alternate every other day and try that for say 2 or 3 weeks, and then I would find a way to taper down to where I would take, say, the 5 milligram oral, excuse me, Monday, Tuesday, and then say the topical on Wednesday, and then oral Thursday, Friday, and then, just kind of do it like that. Every couple of weeks, reduce your topical to one less day in that week, and try that. So I hope that made sense. Let's see. What else we got here? Nico, you mentioned having scalp issues at some point after having several strips it mentioned using a tar-based shampoo, I think. What kind of scalp issues were they? If cool to ask. Very cool to ask. Several years ago, and it had nothing to do with my surgeries. It's just, I don't know what the hell was going on. But I had a really strong breakout of, what was it? It was a massive flaking issue. And sorry, I'm kind of scattered right now, but excuse me, I forgot what it was called. Trying to think. Can't remember. Anyway, large flakes were coming off my scalp, and it was so bad. And these flakes would have hairs in them. It accelerated flaking. That's what it was. It'll come to me. But these flakes were so bad that they had hairs in them, and my hair was looking thinner in the donor area. It wasn't really on top of my scalp where I had the transplants, but it was so bad in my donor area. I started to wonder about my future in the industry, because I thought if I look like I got this patchy mess of a donor area with donor scars showing, how can I be effective as a consultant? And it was really worrying to me. So I eventually, I tried all these different shampoos. I tried Nizoral. I tried some medicated shampoos that were prescription. I tried some creams. Nothing worked until I found a very specific tar-based shampoo, and I forgot the name of it, but it worked. It saved my ass and my hair, and it was a miracle. It worked great, and it was such a powerful turnaround that when I no longer could get this tar shampoo, I started to freak out. And so I had my pharmacist at the time. This was over the counter. It wasn't prescription, but I could only find it in his store and or in his pharmacy. And I asked him to find what was going on, find out what was going on. And he told me that the manufacturer could no longer source the special ingredient that they were. It wasn't just tar, the tar-based shampoo, but they had a very specific ingredient that they could no longer source. And this is a small mom and pop manufacturer. And so a couple years went by, and thankfully it didn't flare up anymore. But he called me and he said, I found a new tar-based shampoo that might work for you, because he said, I think they're using the same ingredient. And that shampoo is still available. It's called Tardan. I'm going to type it in the chat room. Here we go. Tardan is the name of it. And I'll put it down in the description. And check that out. It is a really good shampoo. Excuse me. I still use it maybe once a week, just to kind of keep things at bay, just in case. And I do still use Nizoral, which is 2%. I don't even know if you can get 2% in the States. You can get 2% over the counter in Canada, and I use that once a week as well. And my hair is great. In fact, it's never been better. So I hope that helps. Suna, I've used tea tree shampoo as well in the past. Love the way it feels on my scalp. Smells awesome. But that didn't help my condition at the time. Only this specific tar-based shampoo. Tyler, does taking Propecia every other day limit the results? Like, what's the Finasteride's half-life? Half-life of Finasteride, I don't have it with me. I think it's less than 24 hours. I know that much. But when you build up enough in your system, that's not so much of an issue. I used to take Finasteride, or when I first started taking it, it was every other day. And I was taking 1.25 roughly, because I was quartering a 5 milligram tablet. And for years I took it every other day, and it helped. I am a big believer that Finasteride is dose dependent. So in my personal opinion, my view, the way I look at this, if you take it every day, you'll have a better result than if you took it every other day. If you take a larger dosage every day of, say, 2.5 milligrams, you'll have a better response than if you take 1.25 or 1 every day. That's my personal experience. So take it at your own risk. I'm not a doctor. Let's see what else we got. Yeah, Rob, 12 hours. That's what I thought. Yeah, 12-hour half-life on Finasteride. Sorry, my voice is getting a little bit hoarse. I'm doing all the talking. Let's see. Huge ass. What's up, buddy? Sorry I missed some of your comments. Let's see. Nico, maybe. It could have been that, but let's see. Mordecai's. Okay. And my camera just went off. Guys, let me check my camera. I think my battery just died. Hold on a second. You can still hear me. Yep, battery died. Here we go. And there we are. Okay. Where were we? My video seems a little choppy. Does my choppy look video to you, or does my video look choppy to you guys? Yeah, Ian. Yeah, they may contain parabens or paraffins, but if you're only using it once a week, it's not going to do anything. Excuse me. What else we got? Okay, so I was going to ask the question or answer the question to FSK. Joe, it sounds obvious, I know, but if I shed a hair after a hair transplant, how can I tell if it's a hair or the entire graft? Well, I'll answer that part of your question first. Oh, okay. So, and if so, would that leave blood in its tracks if it's an entire graft? Absolutely. In fact, if you were to lose a graft now, it would be like a mini geyser. It would be a rivulet of like a very, very well-defined, not a trickle, but a small flow of blood. It would be indistinguishable from a small river. It would be it would be very, very obvious. So don't worry about it. If you lose a graft, it will be obvious. You're going to. Here's what's going to happen. Actually, you've got scabs that have already formed on your scalp, and right now, and this isn't to discourage you, but this is the reality of hair transplant surgery. Right now, when you look at your scalp, it is the most dense that your hair transplant will ever look. It'll never look this dense ever again. And the reason for that is because you've got all these little scabs that are larger in diameter than the actual follicles. So when you have these little scabs, formed, they're closer together than the actual hairs are. So take the two scabs side by side like this, and you got a single hair, or we hope a single hair coming out of each one, and this is assuming you're looking at your hairline. So the radius of those scabs around those single hairs is greater than that of the single hairs themselves, or the follicles as well. So when those scabs come off, there's going to be a larger space between those two hairs. So in about a week or two, or a couple weeks, when those scabs are shedding or flaking off, and before those hairs come out, it's going to look less dense. But you're also going to have some of those hair shafts are going to come off of your scalp with the scabs, and they're supposed to. So over the next few weeks, it's going to look thinner and thinner because you got the scabs coming off and some of those hair shafts are shedding with the scabs, and you're going to start questioning, what the hell did I do? It looks thin as hell, but that's not the case. It's a process. So hang tight. Don't freak out when you see that it looks less dense in even a week than it does today. It's natural. Okay. That's part of the process that I'm not crazy about, because I see people all the time online. They start posting their results or their results at, say 3 days after their surgery, and everyone's like, "Oh wow, it looks so dense," when they have no idea what they're talking about. It might not actually be that dense. You only know when the final result comes in. So I hope that answered your question. And then some. Let's see. What else we got? A lot of questions. Guys, I really appreciate your participation. It means a lot to me. We're one like away from that big 20. Some douchebag put an unlike. That's okay. Don't have to please everyone. See. Go back here. I really wish I could have gotten the calls set up. I apologize about that. I'd love to talk to some of you guys next time. Let's see. Yes, you will be freaked out, FSK. Just trust in the process. That's all I can say. Trust in the process. Tyler, there's a lady in Dr. Cooley's office that says you should take, I'm assuming, Finasteride Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Well, that's the way Dr. Wong recommends it. That's the way a lot of doctors recommend it that way. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like I said earlier, I took it that way for years, and it was a great benefit. I mean, my crown improved, not massively, but there's such an obvious improvement that during my first visit back to Dr. Wong 9 months after my first procedure, where he didn't do any work in the crown looked, I mean, he walked in, and before I even turned around, he was like, "Oh, looks like your crown's getting better." So that was a bonus. That was nice to see. What else we got here? Looks like Antonio Alves, welcome to the chat. Love having you here. Any good hair supplements do you recommend taking? I do not. I was talking about this earlier in the broadcast. I don't recommend any supplements. Just eat well, and all your supplements will be in that food. I do recommend, some of you guys might want to check out, like if you insist on eating crap for food, your pizzas and your sodas and all that stuff, you might want to look at taking curcumin, turmeric supplements, which is... excuse me, it's found out to be a really great natural anti-inflammatory. And that I'm a big believer in reducing internal inflammation, because I believe that these foods that we're eating, these processed foods that are killing us earlier now than we used to, than what used to be the case even a few years ago, life expectancies are dropping people. I believe that a lot of that's due to the way that these foods interact with us internally, and they cause chronic internal inflammation, which has a cascading effect. It causes, all kinds of issues that are minor, but they aggregate into bigger issues that can get us down the line. And turmeric or curcumin as a natural anti-inflammatory potentially can help. Let's see. Thanks, guys. Got 21 likes. I appreciate that. See. Rob, turmeric capsules. I don't know. Don't ask me about milligrams or micrograms. Just do your research. Let's see. Okay, so Christos, you're taking omega-3 for anti-inflammation. Are you taking that in the form of like fish oil pills? Because I'm not a big believer in fish oil pills. Excuse me. The quality of fish oil is highly dependent on so many factors. It can go bad. It can be what's referred to as being rancid. I actually talk about this in one of my earlier educational videos. You need to check out, do a search on, again, if you're taking fish oil, do a search on fish oil quality. You'll learn a lot. It's actually quite shocking. Guys, I'm going to take a quick break so I can go get some water. My voice is getting hoarse. So I will be right back. I'm not going to kill the feed. So sit there and chat among yourselves. I'll be right back. All right, everyone, I'm back. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for holding on. I'm going to untangle my earpiece. Even though it's not working, I still want to put it in my ear just in case I can think about it, about fixing it. Okay. No, Tyler, it's not water. It's vodka. No, it's water. It's my carbonated water. Excuse me. All right. What else we got here? Chat. Guys, thank you for hanging out in the chat room. Thank you for watching this broadcast. I really appreciate it. And let's keep the questions coming. Okay, Pit W. Joe, Dr. Charles said that I might need a second procedure down the road. This is not for now, but your recommendation? Another FUT or FUE? What is there to consider? All hairline and corners. Great question. It's dependent on your issue. I mean, I don't have your photos. We're not talking, so you can't really explain. And please don't try in the chat room what your hair loss was like to begin with. Look, I think that in general, I'll just talk in general. If you've had an FUT for your first procedure, and it was only for the hairline, you weren't going for a big procedure to get maximum coverage or anything like that. It's tough. I mean, I'm a believer in strip surgery, obviously, because I've had so many, and I feel it worked out great for me. But in today's age, there are great options with the FUE. And one thing, I had a conversation with someone the other day about this. He wanted to actually, we're talking to Nico, and I don't know if it was the last show that we did or a recent show. But the idea of going in for multiple strips till you strip out is a solid approach. That's what I've done. I cannot have any more strips. I've had 7 strip surgeries and I'm done. Only because, not because my scalp laxity isn't there, it's because the density in that area that's still viable is not enough for me to take a risk for another potential stretch back. I could if I knew that if I knew that my scar would turn out great, I could probably get another 2,000 grafts, 1,500 to 2,000. But I don't want to risk it. I've had a great run with strip surgery. I am stripped out only in that the benefit to cost ratio is not worth it for me. Dr. Wong did a great job on me, but there was one of those procedures that I had where it was a revision surgery where I got like a few hundred grafts out of it. But the back of my scalp, along the occipital bone, that area of my donor scar stretched. So one of my procedures was just a revision along that back. And then the final surgery I had was actually 2 strips. I had one strip on one side of my scalp and another strip on the other side. The back of my scalp was left completely alone, yet he was still able to create a seamless single incision line or scar line once everything healed up. So once we did that last surgery, I made the decision, he made the decision, we're done. No more strip surgeries. So if you're thinking about a second surgery, if you go, going back to Dr. Charles, I'm sure that, with his experience and his skill, the chance for a great donor scar, assuming you have a great donor scar now, is very high. But no doctor can guarantee you the same outcome in round 2 that you got in round 1. Never, ever forget that. So, chances are it'll still turn out great. But there's always a chance that it won't. So, if you keep that in mind and you weigh the the risk versus benefit ratio, then sure, go for another FUT. But if you have the donor, if you have a really solid donor, if it's really dense all over, if you don't have retrograde or diffuse unpatterned or any of those issues that can affect donor zones, and it's just naturally a really strong density consistently throughout the donor zone or donor area, then maybe FUE. I mean, you could put some FUE, maybe a couple hundred in the scar to make it even better than it is. And you can move forward with FUE for any potential loss down the road. But then it comes down to, what's your family history? Are you destined to lose a lot more hair in the future? Are you taking medication? Finasteride? Are you taking, any PRP treatments? Are you doing laser? All these things to prevent getting worse. I think that if you have the potential for a lot more loss, then maybe strip is the answer. I mean, it's highly subjective based on your specific situation, which I don't have those details on. So I hope that helped. I mean, it was kind of general, but I hope that you were able to take something from that. So let's move on to the next one. Chris, Dr. Haber in Cleveland. I have not been to his clinic. No, I have not. For some more. Okay, so there's some talk about MSM, which stands for mono something something. It's a very long word, but it is a mineral that is naturally occurring in all of our cells. So what about MSM for our hair? I was around when MSM was first being introduced in the online world for improving your hair. And there is a misconception today that started a long time ago about what it does. And MSM, for anyone to know, if you're curious, MSM is a supplement you can get at any health food store. You can get it at many grocery stores in the health food section, or the vitamin section. It's a very mundane vitamin. Like I said, it's a mineral. It's already occurring in our bodies naturally in every cell of our body. And if you take this, you'll notice two things happening. You'll notice that your nails grow faster and your hair grows faster. So if you clip your nails once every 2 weeks, you'll have to clip them once a week. If you get your hair cut every, say, 3 weeks, or say once a month, you have to get it cut maybe every 2 to 3 weeks. That's it. It just causes the keratin production to increase. If you start taking it after you have a hair transplant, it does nothing for causing early growth. Doesn't affect it at all. If you have thinning hair, it does not prevent your hair from falling out. It does not increase your hair growth or the number of hairs. It doesn't do any of that. It might increase, it will increase the rate at which your hair grows. So the anagen phase of the hair growth will be faster. Like I was saying, it'll get longer faster. So if you want long hair, take a MSM. Take about 3,000 to 4,000 micrograms a day. I'm not a doctor, but that's it. That's all it does. It might make your hair shinier. It might give it a bit of a healthier look to it, but that's all. That's all there is to it. Let's see. Joe, what's your opinion on traveling for a procedure? Think of going from Florida to see Dr. Rahal. What do you think of his results? I know Dr. Rahal personally. I worked with him for several months before I started doing this. And I think traveling's fine. There are pros and cons to it. If you go to a clinic that is used to having patients flying in from outside of their clinic, they know how to handle international patients, or they know how to handle traveling patients. There's nothing wrong with it. I do like the idea of being able to drive to your clinic for a checkup. I do like the idea of having your clinic nearby if you've got potential issues that you feel you need to have addressed immediately. But when you're going to a clinic, and this isn't an endorsement of anyone or swaying you from going anywhere else. This is just speaking in generalities. But if you're going to a clinic that obviously has a great track record, they know what they're doing, and they've been around for quite a while, the odds of there being something that you need to go see them for, like some sort of emergency or something concerning, are really, really low. When I was working at the clinic here in Vancouver, 70%, 80% of all the clients that were coming in were coming in internationally, and it was super rare to have any sort of legitimate issue where it would have been helpful if they were, close by. So, knock yourself out. I mean, it's, Dr. Charles, ISHRS accepted member. He's a solid guy, solid work. But same thing with Dr. Rahal. Just depends on what you're looking for. So I'm also a fan of sticking with a doctor. If you're happy with the doctor that you've been to, this is, again, generalities. If you're happy with your existing provider, there's really no reason to switch. If you see some sort of deficiencies with your provider, then you can consider it. So, that's the way I feel about that in general. How soon after a procedure can I use Topic? I'm back to work, or I'm off work for dude, you're off work for 3 months? Yeah, that's more than enough. But I also encourage people to always go light on the Topic during recovery, just because you don't want to get too used to using it, because no transplant will replace the perceived density that you'll get from concealer. Never forget that. Let's see what else we got. The clinic says 12 months. Well, yeah, that's follow your clinic's instructions. I don't really think that that's necessary, but use your best judgment, my friend. David from Israel, writing in Hebrew. Can't write Hebrew or read Hebrew. Thank you very much. Hi, Joe. David from Israel. Have you heard about HDC Clinic in Cyprus? I have. They were, here's the thing about clinics like HDC. Nothing against them whatsoever. Everything I've seen out there, seen that their clinic puts out, looks pretty solid. The problem with, and I could be wrong because I've not been paying attention to them for quite a while, but you probably don't know who the doctor is. And I'm a big fan of, if you're going to a clinic that has multiple doctors, I'm a big fan of knowing which doctor did the work. Excuse me. Because I'm not a fan of, if it's this clinic, then every doctor there is obviously going to be good because the clinic has such standards. I don't believe in that. I believe in judging each doctor on their merits. Excuse me. And that's something you can only do by looking at the results. So if they're identifying the results that they're putting out by being by Dr. X or Dr. Y or by Dr. Z, and you're seeing multiple results from those specific doctors, that's good, then fine. I do know early on in their history, Dr. John Cole was involved in training. I want to say that this is the case, but he was involved in training the one in Cyprus, their facility, and the doctors there. I don't think he has any sort of affiliation with them now, but they got a solid start to their training. So that's all I can tell you. I'm not saying they're great and go to them because I don't know that much more about them. But there you go. I hope that helps. Let's see. Nico, when you strip out, is that a laxity issue and a connective tissue concern? Yes. I asked too many damn questions. I know. Yes, you do, but it's okay, buddy. Because if you've got them, other people have them. Yeah, it comes down to laxity. Usually, if you can't, if you don't have the laxity, take a wide enough strip to get enough hair, then why bother? And you can risk having problems with the closure. So, Neil Adams says or asks, what is better in order, finasteride, minoxidil, PRP, or laser cap? I would say finasteride, number one. And then I'd say that with the results I've seen from good PRP, PRP would be number two, and then minoxidil and laser caps are probably neck and neck. Let's see. Got some things coming through, so pardon the distractions. Okay. Stay casual. Do you have any tips on shock loss? That's a great question. But we have to isolate what kind of shock loss you're talking about, because there are two kinds of shock loss. If you want a comprehensive written explanation, you can go to my website, hairtransplantmentor.com, and click on the glossary and scroll down to shock loss, and you'll see a more comprehensive explanation. But since we're here, I'll talk about it. The two types of shock loss are permanent and temporary. And temporary shock loss is a result from the trauma of the procedure. I describe it as being from the interruption of blood flow from any surgery. It can be a strip surgery, it can be FUE surgery, or even a non-hair transplant style surgery. Like if you have some sort of surgery where you got to have a lesion removed from your scalp, or obviously some sort of cranial invasive procedure, you can have shock loss from that, and it's from the interruption of blood flow. So, when you're having a strip procedure, a lot of blood vessels are cut, and the scalp itself is a very vast and complex matrix of vessels and capillaries and so on and so forth. And so, all these are feeding, multiple facets of the scalp, including the organs of the hair, which are known as hair. So when that blood flow is interrupted, the hair can be shocked out. Very similar to the actual transplant process, because when you're taking a follicle out of the scalp and you're storing it in saline or hypothermosol at 4 degrees Celsius, and then transplanting it back into the scalp, that process alone, being cut off from its blood supply, that's what causes a form of shock loss, which is the follicle shedding after the procedure, because it cut off from its blood supply. Same thing's happening in the donor area. So, and also same thing is happening in the recipient area, where incisions are made and hair can fall out. Again, interruption of blood flow. But then you also have another reason why the blood flow can be interrupted is if you have a strip closure and the closure is too tight, you can have shock loss from that. And usually when that happens, you'll have shock loss on the back left or back right or back left areas of your scalp. And those are typically the tightest areas of the scalp during a closure. And so when you have a tight area on the scalp from a wound closure, it acts as if you're pressing down on it. So you see in the movies where someone's bleeding out and they say, put pressure on it. Well, what they want to do is they want to put pressure on it to push the blood away from the wound so it stops the bleeding, and it gives it the opportunity to coagulate into form barriers that prevent more bleeding. That's what that's about. So when you have pressure from it being too tight of a closure, that's generally the same type of, I guess that's the right comparison. And because of that, the blood flow being pushed away from that pressure, it can cause that area to become bald for a few months. You can have a spot the size of a silver dollar. I feel like I'm rambling here, but hopefully that answers the question. And then the flip side of that is permanent shock loss, where going back to that pressure issue, it can be such pressure that it takes too long for the pressure to be relieved, and those hairs can be permanently shocked out. It's very rare, but I have seen it. But then the other forms of permanent shock loss is physical damage to the follicle. So you can have shock loss along the incision line from a strip surgery, where the follicles are cut too deeply adjacent to the strip wound, and you can have a bare area above parts of the scar. You can also have permanent shock loss from FUE, which is known as devil's halo, where peripheral follicles are transected while taking out the target follicles. So you're trying to take out one single follicle and trying to go at it from different directions. And because of the way that hair follicles can grow under the scalp, you're killing neighboring hair follicles. That's why punch size and technique are so important. And then, of course, you can cause permanent shock loss in the recipient area if the incisions are crossing over and killing neighboring hairs that when you're trying to add density and things like that. So I hope that covered your question. Let's see what else we got here. Joe Thompson, have you ever been bald? That's a great question. Go to my website and find out. Yes, very bald. FSK, Joe, I feel like there's movement in my scalp like a fly. I know this one. Like a fly walking across, if you know what I mean. Yes, I do. Don't say that because there's a fly on your head. Shit. It's because there's a fly on your head. No. Yeah, it's common. It's, keep in mind that when you have several thousand holes punched in your head, you're going to have nerves that are cut. And so you're going to have little funny sensations. And this is just part of the healing process. It's normal, buddy. Don't worry about it. It's good. It'll subside. Let's see. Well, Nico with another question. Will permanent shock only really occur right after surgery and or up to 2 weeks after surgery? No. You can notice it up to a few months after, but once it's there, like if you see it forming, say, between 1 and 3 months after the procedure, actually you'll start to notice it before 3 months, but it doesn't go away, and it'll last for quite a while. So I hope that answered the question. What else we got here? We missed some questions further up. I'm just scrolling up in the chat room, guys. Again, thank you for participating and asking questions in the chat room. The chat room is busier than I've ever seen it, so thank you so much. Let's see. And just so you know, this is the first time I've done this on my own. And if the time comes where I need to do this more often, I will endeavor to have the phone line ready. I actually do have a new phone number I set up for this. It's just I can't seem to get it to work. But there's just a side note. Let's see here. More questions. Rishith Reddy. Joe, what do you think about Joseph Greco for PRP? I don't, because I've never really paid that much attention. But Spencer Kobren, my usual trusty partner, he swears by it because he's got family members that actually go to Dr. Greco for this. And he's one of the originators. He's one of the godfathers of PRP. And yeah, I mean, that's all I can say. I mean, I don't know, but if Spencer Kobren talks highly of him, then that's good enough for me. So I would consider him for myself if I were to consider having PRP again. Let's see. Christos, again, what happens with the native hairs after surgery, temporary hair loss, or loss forever? Wait, did I read that right? What happens with the native hairs after surgery, temporary loss or loss forever? That goes back to the temporary or permanent shock loss, buddy. It depends. Were they damaged physically from, some sort of tool killing them, or is it from interruption of blood flow? Don't know. It's case by case. Let's see. Lawrence Rizzo, what are your best post-op recovery tips? That's a good question. It's not something I've thought of in a while, but I don't think that there's no trick to having a good post-op regimen. It depends on the procedure. Like if you had strip surgery, I'm a believer in trying to get back in the action as soon as possible. Some clinics will have you tiptoeing on eggshells for a month after you've had the surgery. I've had enough to where, I mean, I don't know. I think that with a strip surgery, don't bump your head, obviously. The donor zone, when you've had it closed up with sutures or staples, obviously you don't want to bump that because it'll hurt like a mother. But you also don't really have anything to worry about, because if you do bump it, you know it's being held together by the sutures or staples, so that's not an issue. But the recipient area, I'm not a big fan of spraying stuff on the scalp. I'm a big believer in your body healing properly, but there is evidence. I mean, some of the doctors I work with believe in building a terrarium on top of the scalp. Like, for instance, Dr. Cooley, he actually developed the protocol for using hypothermosol with ATP post-op spray, and there is evidence, and I think actually Dr. Wong does this now, and a couple other clinics do, that will help with the help speeding up the recovery. But I'm not a big believer. Like, I'll put it like this: one thing that I think can happen if you're spraying things on your scalp is you have the potential that I don't have anything to back it up with as far as a lot of cases, but you do have the potential for spreading infection. And what I mean by that, if you have even one incision site that has some sort of infection that's built up for whatever reason, and you start spraying fluids on your scalp, unless they are an antibiotic type of spray, then that spray can actually, as it spreads and runs on your scalp, it can actually carry that infection from one incision to the next, and you can have potentially a spreading of infection on the recipient area. Have I seen it? Yes, but extremely rare. But I'm also a fan of eliminating as much risk in that regard as possible. But personally, I think that a dry healing is better. Different clinics will disagree with me. I can't argue really against that, really. I just think that if it's a clinic that has a great track record, then you should follow their post-op instructions regardless of what I say. Obviously eating right. With FUE, it's pretty much the same because you're dealing with the recipient area. That's no different. The donor area, some clinics will actually will have you rubbing an antibiotic. This is my physical sign for rubbing, in case you didn't recognize that. They'll have you rub an antibiotic ointment on the extraction sites for several days. I think that's a fine idea. Others will have dry healing. That's also a fine idea. You can get back into exercising pretty quick with that. It's excuse me. It's basically just common sense stuff, and ultimately following your specific clinic's instructions. What I say is irrelevant. I do have my opinions based on my experience. Yes, FSK aloe vera is fine, but make sure. In fact, if you're going to use aloe vera, I would get the pure aloe vera in a jar, and I would use a glove, a clean glove, to kind of dip into that and grab it, because you don't want to use your grimy fingers. If you do use your grimy fingers, make sure you use an antibacterial soap, because you don't want to leave. Yeah. Anyway, just be clean. Be clean, guys. So I hope that helps. A lot of good questions here, guys. Let's see. Yes, and by the way, this does save a lot of time with emails, because, guys, I love the fact that you guys send me emails, but I hate responding to them because my wrists are sore by the end of the day. So, so this is preferred. Okay, so what about transection rate for one FUE surgery of 3,000 grafts versus 3 surgeries of 1,000 grafts, 1 per week? So hang on. So 1,000 grafts a week for 3 weeks. I wouldn't do that. Only because that's a lot of trauma, because your scalp is going to be sore after the fact. And this goes back to FSK saying sore from what, Joe? I'm talking about the surgery. Your donor area after a strip surgery is going to be pretty sore. In fact, your extraction area from your FUE that you just had yesterday is also going to be pretty sore, maybe. At least mildly sore, like an ache. It won't be super painful, but it'll be a mild ache. But if you bump that Like if you hit your head up against the wall, it'll hurt even more. See, Joe, let's see. Joe, you think it's possible to hide a hair transplant from my girlfriend? No way. I can tell her all family is caveman Norwood ones. Not sure. Okay, so is it possible to hide a hair transplant from your girlfriend? Yes, if you don't see her for several days. And if it's an FUE procedure. And especially if you do a no-shave FUE procedure, which I'm not a fan of unless you can find someone that does this all the time. Subject for a different discussion. In fact, I've got a doctor that I'm reviewing. He might be joining the hair transplant mentor partner doctor program. And that's all he does is, or almost all he does is unshaven FUE. So we'll see. Let's see. All right. So Rashith Reddy, Joe, I took your suggestions and I'm asking the doctors about data and do they have any unhappy patients? Now I can filter them. Good luck. Be interested to see what they say. Let's see. See what else we got. Looking for more questions, guys. Is there any medication or solution for hair loss in the near future that you know about? Give us some hope. I wish I could, my friend. But nothing I can talk about. Nothing I know about. I mean, I have some doctors talking to me about some things that they're working on. They're maybe, like collectively with a larger group of doctors, but nothing that's going to be available soon. So sorry. Peter Weiss. I'm assuming it's Peter Weiss. Because see that little funny character at the end that I know in German is a sound of a really hard double S. Correct me if I'm wrong. Peter, is it Peter Weiss in English? Anyway, Joe Ware Spencer. I fired him. He couldn't deliver anymore. So he's gone. It's now the Joe Tillman Show. Thanks for asking. Josh Thompson, nearest future. No. Stem cells. Yeah, we're looking at stem cells. That's been the buzzword for the past 10 years at least. What else we got? What's the time? 3, 4. Oh God, almost time to wrap up, guys. I've been on for a solid hour and a half. Questions. What we got? Okay. I'm scrolling up. 360 STS. What is the difference between FUE grafts implanted versus total implanted hairs? Great question. If I understand it correctly. So, okay. So when you look at a clinic website or on one of the forums, and a clinic is posting a result saying 2,000 grafts. What does that mean for the number of hairs? Well, it depends on a few things. It depends on if they're using true follicular units, or if they are using. This goes into a whole. I could talk for hours about this, but what I would recommend that you do to get referenced or to get some sort of context to what I'm going to be telling you is to go onto here on my YouTube channel and look for Celebrity Hairline Disasters, the Kyle Christie Effect, Part 1, and that will tell you everything you need to know about how grafts are placed into the scalp with FUE. It's a huge problem. It's a huge problem that I've been talking about for a long time, and I made this video to kind of bring it into a digestible format for you guys. And then it's something that we're also talking about kind of with FUE Europe, which is an organization that I'm supporting because they're trying to help improve the industry. And I say this, yes, I'm kind of sidestepping the issue or the question only because this relates to a much bigger issue. The FUE Europe is very concerned about this. The ISHRS is very concerned about this. We're talking about the inexperienced practice. That's the way I need to reference this. The inexperienced practice of medicine when it comes to hair restoration. I need to write that down, actually. Hold on a second. Hold on, guys. I say that because I'm trying to come up with a way to talk about this in a presentation coming up. Inexperienced practice of medicine, TM. Okay, yeah. So to get back to this, you got the number of grafts, and we're going to assume it's 2,000 for this discussion. The number of hairs that are in each graft is greater than the number of grafts transplanted. So if you have a typical Caucasian male and you have a true follicular unit as it grows naturally in the scalp, it's measured between 2.3 to 2.4 hairs per follicular unit naturally occurring. So if you've got a 2,000 graft case, Caucasian male with fine straight hair, then you're looking at 4,500 hairs, give or take, 4,300, 4,000 to 600, something like that. There are cases, or there are clinics that will use what are called MFUs, or multi-follicular units, which is multiple follicular units in the same graft. So a graft is simply a piece of tissue that has the hair, whether it be a follicular unit, whether it be a plug from 40 years ago that'll have 20 to 30 hairs. So I hope that makes sense. So the graft is the tissue that's implanted, and and then the number of hairs depends on whether it's a follicular unit, a mini, micro, or a plug. I hope that makes sense. What else we got? More questions. Where can I, Joe Thompson asks, where can I find your daily routine for hair, or what is it? I don't really have a daily routine. I've talked about it on the show. I've talked about it in various posts. I take a quarter tablet of ProScar, sometimes every day, sometimes every other day. Depends on how I'm feeling. Depends on how lazy I am. And I use specific shampoos only because I know that they're quality shampoos, not because they're going to help my hair as far as growth or anything. I'll use Nizoral and Tardan once a week to keep my scalp healthy, to keep the flaking down. That's about it. Get a good haircut. And that's about it. Let's see. Rashith asks, does amino injections have good results? What's my take on that? No opinion. Amino acid injections hasn't even come up on my radar before, so I can't reference that or address that. Let's see. Silly last question from Nico. Last question, seriously. Would insurance red flag medications like Fin or Lonitin for a pre-existing condition as opposed for hair loss? Could be. Yeah. If you're young, yeah. I wouldn't personally. I would just pay for it cash. Pay for it myself. That's the way I've always done it. Let's see. Christos Conan, I have an iron deficiency. Does this play a role for hair loss? Absolutely it does. And in fact, anytime I have a female asking me what to do about the hair loss, one of the first things I do is one of the first things I tell them to do is to go to their doctor and have them run a battery of tests, blood tests, including one to check for low iron levels. Women will have, typically they'll have iron deficiencies more than men do, and this can lead to thin hair. So you take an iron supplement that can stop the hair loss due to iron deficiency. In some cases, it might thicken the hair up, but usually, I could be wrong, but I think if I recall correctly, usually if you have an iron deficiency based form of hair loss, once you get the deficiency taken care of, you pretty much are where you are, and it doesn't really mean that it's going to turn around, but it does mean it won't get worse, if I remember correctly. I think that's the case. So, but at least take your supplements to stop it from getting worse. Let's see. That's it. Yeah, you got a family history of that. Yeah, it's usually genetic. Okay, Joe Thompson. So I'm gonna help you out here, buddy. He says he can't find a picture of my hair loss. I'm gonna send you or put the link in the chat room. Let's see here. Going to my website. Hair transplants. Seems to be a bit slow today. Probably because I'm streaming. While that's processing, let's see any more questions. Nothing new. Here we go. Okay, so sorry, hold on a second, guys. I'm having some issues. Huh. Okay, well, I can't actually send you that link because it looks like my I've got two systems here, and it looks like this system is barfing on itself for some reason. It can't handle this bandwidth. I'm not sure what's going on here. Sorry, guys. Hold on. I think I have too many YouTube windows open. Let's see. Close that. Close that. Yeah, I'm having a memory issue, guys, so sorry about that. Oh, and I got my Photoshop open, too. Let's see. Got to close some windows. Save. Okay, PSD. This is tough doing it alone. I usually have Spencer on the other side talking, and I get to, kind of goof off. Let's see. There we go. And close that. Let's try my windows again. There we go. It's working better. All right. And go back to my website. Thanks for your patience. Joe Thompson, what's the smallest graft count you've heard of for a procedure? 200 grafts or 100 grafts, actually, for eyebrows. Or filling in a spot. Saw a guy had a patient had a small bare spot from a scar, and 50 grafts were put into it. I think there's even smaller ones. Let's see, Justin from Florida, J Knowledge, what's up, buddy? Okay. Going back to my website. Close some more windows. I should know better than this, but it's like for those of you that don't know, if you use Chrome browser, it sucks memory. If you got too many windows open, it'll slow down your performance. Okay, so going back to the chat room, Joe Thompson, there's the link, and that takes you to the introduction about my hair loss, and then at the bottom are links to every step of my development. Okay. So going through these questions here. Have you seen someone with no hair loss get a transplant? Yes, I have. Yes, I have. I don't recommend it unless there are conditions that can still warrant, like triangular alopecia, which is a condition where you're simply born with really high temples. I remember a patient, it looked like he was a really strong Norwood 3, really strong recession in the temples, but his density in the forelock and the top and everywhere was solid. I mean, we're talking higher than most guys, actually. And so he had a transplant to fill in those corners. A few thousand grafts. It was about 3,000 grafts to fill in those corners, pretty high density. Turned out great. I have seen guys that have no appearance of hair loss. He had an appearance of hair loss where, beyond a Norwood 2, improved from Norwood 2, no hair loss, and he needed to lower his hairline, even though it was already pretty low. And those are the cases where you want to kind of look at the how can I put this, the psychological side of things, because if you have a hairline that's no different, actually, I'll never forget. About 10 years ago, I was in England doing consultations, and I had a patient or a consult show up, and he showed up because he wanted to talk to me because he'd been following my website, which was a different version back then. But he wanted to meet me, and he was telling me that he hoped at one time, and if you're listening, what is his name? I forgot his name, but if you're listening, I understand, and I don't want you to think I'm picking on you or anything, but there was no way in hell this guy would ever need a hair transplant. This guy, Eddie Munster hairline, and he told me that he hoped that he at one time in his life would have hair as good as mine, with a 7 head. And this guy's hairline was like down to here. Down to here? Yeah, down to here. Like this much space between his eyebrows and his hairline. And I thought I was joking. And again, if you're listening or watching, I thought you were joking. He had a phenomenal head of hair. Like everyone in the room was like, "Why is he here?" And he was telling me that, he wanted to have hair like me, which it blew my mind. But that was a case where it certainly would not make sense. And yeah, so to answer your question, I have seen that. What else we got? Let's see. Yeah, Benny G. Maria Fowler did not have any hair loss. She had a naturally high hairline, which is common actually on a lot of women as well as men. And she did not need to get a hair transplant, in my opinion. And it is what it is. She is where she is today, and it's unfortunate, but she's on a good path. So yeah, that's exactly what happened with her. Let's see. Daniel Hayek, that's a great question. Where should balding guys get haircuts? So many ignorant hairdressers out there. It's jumping around here. Out there, who will try to peddle bogus hair products to fix your balding. That's true. Hairdressers generally don't know unless they're working with a clinic or working with a professional that's kind of coached them. That's actually a great point. But the best place to get a haircut if you're balding is the one that you can find that you feel comfortable with. I've been through so many hairdressers, so many I've been to barbers. I've been to really high-end hairdressers where it's like $200 to get a haircut. And right now, like Linda, you see her in some of my videos, she cuts my hair. It's $20. And she's been cutting my hair for 6 years, I think 6 years now. And she understands how to cut it. And I will go to her until the day I die or the day she dies. She knows my hair. She knows how to cut it. And she's really good at it. And so all you can do is just do the trial and error. That's it. There's no specific answer to that except trial and error. That's all I can tell you. Let's see what else we got. Christos, yes, I do. I don't know him well, but I have met, and I think I've had dinner with Dr. Michaelis, and he's got his own clinic in Cyprus. I met him in Madrid, as a matter of fact, about 6 years ago. What else we got? Thank you, Benny. Linda does a dope job. Appreciate that. Yeah, I agree. She does a great job. Okay, so guys, I gotta tell you, it's 4:16 p.m. on the Pacific Coast. I am getting worn out. My throat is getting hoarse. I've been through almost all my water, and I need to go. So I'm going to chalk this up as a success, even though I could not get the lines working. I do appreciate you with your questions. I do appreciate your likes. There's some new guys in the chat room. Do me a favor and click that like button. If you haven't subscribed, guys, the hell's wrong with you? Subscribe to this channel. Help me get to 2,000. I'm getting there. I think I've cracked this 8,600 mark. My subscriptions are increasing in number and frequency. I got more people subscribing more often. But please help out. I want to get to 10,000 because once I get to 10,000, new features open up that I can add to the podcast, to the streaming, and to the videos in general, to the channel. New things I can do. It's exciting. So the sooner I get to 10,000 subscribers, the sooner I can add these functions into my channel, which will benefit you. And of course, more likes helps more views, which eventually leads to more subscriptions. And if any of you have, all of you have your social media channels, share this on your social media. I know it's maybe revealing that you are concerned or have some sort of attention to hair loss because it's a hair loss show. But any way that you can share this and spread the word is greatly appreciated because, look, this is an industry that is getting more and more dangerous on a daily basis. And any sort of help that you guys can give means that there are more eyeballs and more ears listening to the truth about this industry. And that's what I deliver. That's what Spencer Kobren delivers when we're on together on Spencer Kobren's The Bald Truth. This is not The Bald Truth. This is the Joe Tillman Show. Because I don't have Spencer next to me, so I'm not going to call it The Bald Truth. But it's all about sharing. And I got to tell you guys, there are exciting things in the works. The hair loss and hair restoration organizations are taking notice of, well, they've been noticing, but they're starting to work on ways to safeguard you against some of the bad stuff that's going on, in the industry. There are too many guys getting harmed, too many women getting harmed, and I'm involved with all of this, or most of this, behind the scenes. And I got to tell you, there's some exciting things happening. You got some campaigns going on by some of these looking at some messages. You got some campaigns going on by some of these organizations that are designed to help you. And I'm excited and honored to be part of it. One of those is FUE Europe. They just released the second issue of FUE magazine. You should check it out. That's FUEmagazine.com. And I've got a big article in there about why you might not regret being bald in 2019. And what I'm talking about in this article is how there are a lot of bald guys or balding guys that are getting hair transplants and they regret it because they didn't do the research, and they're coming to me. They're coming to Spencer and they're looking for help. And it's an epidemic, guys. And so read the article. Go to FUEmagazine.com. Check out this latest episode or latest issue and share it if you can. I'm proud to be a part of that. And then I know that the ISHRS, the International Society of Hair Restoration Surgeons, I've talked about this many times in the past. I've got a video where I'm talking about different organizations, what they mean. I talk about the ISHRS. It is an educational organization, and they too are looking at this issue, and they're trying to come up with ideas on how to educate you and to fight this problem. The International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons, IAHRS, fantastic organization, and it is the baseline for membership in what I do, hairtransplantmentor.com. The doctors I work with, they have to be, at the very least, members of the IAHRS before I'll even look at them. And the reason for that is because it is a consumer-based organization that is looking out for quality, and there is a baseline number of surgeries that a clinic or a doctor has to have under the belt to be considered for IAHRS membership. And then there's the indicators of quality through background vetting of these different clinics. So when I look at a clinic or a doctor, I know they're IAHRS accepted members. I know that they have that base level of quality for me to be able to consider them and look at what I need to consider for membership with what I do. What else is there? Oh, I want to mention some websites. There's hairlossexperiences.com. I'm friends with the admin of hairlossexperiences.com. Great guy. He's a repair patient, and he's not a psychopath. He's great to deal with. He's easy to deal with. I consider him a friend of mine, and he believes in the message that Spencer and I talk about. He believes in the message that I talk about on my website, and he's happy to support the bald truth and any media that I put out on his website. That's hairlossexperiences.com. It is primarily a UK-based forum, but being the interwebs, everyone's got access to it, and so I do highly recommend that you guys check it out. There's also bellycapelli.forumfree.it. That is the Italian-based hair restoration forum. It's a massive forum, huge traffic numbers, and I got to say, the Italian patients are the most interactive patients in the world. You go to this website and you see just all kinds of patients sharing their experiences and their results and asking questions and answering questions. It's awesome. And the guy that runs that website is also a personal friend of mine. He's also a repair patient, and he's got his own hair loss journey that's quite impressive. That's bellycapelli.forumfree.it. Great resource. Go over there and check them out. The other websites are, of course, the International Alliance of Hair Restoration Surgeons. That's IAHRS.org. A great, safe place to start your search. And, of course, American Hair Loss Association. Fantastic resource for general information. And then my own website. That is hairtransplantmentor.com. As far as I know, it is the most trafficked, independent hair loss or hair restoration surgically focused website on the web. I've got the most comprehensive hair loss and hair restoration glossary, so I highly encourage you to reference this website, bookmark it, specifically the glossary section, in case you want to look something up. I'm actually going to be investing in expanding that even larger and more comprehensively, so it's a better resource for you to check back to when you need to. So I think that's it. I think that is all of the credits I need to give out. Let me see if there's anything else I need to look at. See, I'm just going to scroll. Thanks for letting me rant there. Let's see. See. Yeah, okay, everything's looking good. That's it, guys. I really appreciate you tuning in. Thank you so much for the support. Thank you for the likes and all the questions that you've asked. It's been a blast. And hopefully, if I ever do this again on my own, you can call in and we can talk like big boys. Thank you so much. Be sure to tune in next Tuesday when on The Bald Truth with Spencer Kobren and Joe Tillman, we're going to have live in studio Dr. John Cole. And we might have some surprises, not sure, but there's the big meeting in Los Angeles. So there's a lot of things going on. Some of the things I might not be aware of. So stay tuned. Check it out and see you later. Bye-bye.